I felt like I could be me. But then at some point I got this, and I don't know what it was, is that I needed to be, that perfect wife and fill that, perfect little Stepford wife image in order to keep a husband. Mm-hmm. And so that is what I did.
Welcome to the Starting Over Stronger show, where you'll find help and hope for your divorce survival and recovery. Divorce well, live well.
Hello, and welcome back to the Starting Over Stronger show. I'm excited today to bring you another SOS survivor story, and I haven't had one for a while, so I hope that it's exciting for you as well. We talk a lot here on the show about all the things that you go through as you go through a divorce, and all the practical help that you need through that process. But I think the stories are important because as a listener, you're here because you're going through a divorce or you're anticipating that. And I think it's important for you to hear from people who have already come out of it and have a new life that they love, and they want to share a story with you about maybe the details of what they went through, or maybe just more of a focus on how they got where they are and what has made the difference for them, or what they've learned in the process as they went through a divorce. So that's what we're here to do today. So I'm going to welcome to the show Miss Jennifer Lee, and she's going to tell us her story, and we're going to talk about that. So hello, Jennifer.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah,
I'm excited to talk.
Very good. Well, let's just start with a little bit of the basics about you and who you are and what you do in the world, and, just anything you want to tell us about who Jennifer is.
Sounds good. Well, I feel like there's so many things that I could say, so many hats I wear. But the things that stick out the most is that I'm a single mom of three amazing teenagers. I was a stay-at-home mom until my divorce. And then I knew I needed to get a job when I moved out of the house. And I had always loved doing massage. I loved touch. Physical touch is my love language. I've always been really good at it. And so I decided to go back to massage therapy school, or go to massage therapy school. And when I was there, I really just had this huge spiritual awakening. It just opened this part of me up that I'd never knew was there, because I kind of closed myself off from that. And so I am a licensed massage therapist. I'm actually a physio massage therapist, a physio spiritual massage therapist. And I call myself an embodiment guide, because all of the jobs that I do help people come back into their bodies so that they can become empowered and live their life in the present moment, and really be connected with the people and the places around them. And I teach a dance fitness class that's called Vibe Dance. And I teach that 3 days a week at a all women's gym, which has been amazing because it's allowed me to cultivate a community of awesome women who just want to be in their bodies and move it and burn calories and have fun. And I also combined massage with body-mind coaching. So I bring people into their bodies before we actually do the work on the table to help them release what's being stored in their bodies, and then help them discover ways that they can continue to take that feeling into their everyday life, so that they don't continue to build up the stress and put the stuff in their bodies that then they need to release later.
Yeah.
I also lead meditations to help people get in their bodies and release. And I have a couple of projects in the work for helping to bring other healers together. We're not very good at marketing ourselves. So being able to put together a platform, a way for people like that to put their name out there and have clients be able to find them in a way that doesn't take away from what they do, because we are usually in the ethereal spiritual world, and more of the 3D, technology stuff is not our gift. So working with a couple people to do that. And kind of take my coaching online as well. So lots of stuff going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a word that I heard you say a lot is embodiment and come back into your body. And I would like if you could just kind of dumb that down for somebody who has no idea what you're talking about.
Yes. So a lot of the times we go through life just living up in our head and our mind, allowing our mind to direct us on what we do every day, tell us what's right and wrong, to make decisions. And really, our inner authority is in our bodies. Our mind is just a tool for us to use once we kind of gather information. And so really being able to connect with that inner knowing and your intuition, that gut feeling, or some people find it in their heart center. But you can't do that unless you bring your attention and your awareness into the body. It's one of the ways, you can get out of anxiety when you're up in your head and your mind spinning and worrying about the future, to be able to stop and say, okay, I'm going to name 5 things I can see, 4 things I can hear, 3 things I can smell, and just really bring it back to the senses and tune into your body and listen to hear what it's trying to tell you, those pain signals, where you're holding stress. When you just stop and slow down and really, closing your eyes helps to kind of tune out that sense, to really bring your awareness into the body. That's really all meditation is just bringing your focus and your awareness into your physical body, feeling down into your feet, feeling how they feel on the floor, feeling how your butt feels in the seat, how your shoulders are dropped down away from your ears. That's really that's embodiment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Well, I figured you'd explain it in a way that people could relate to it a little bit more. So it'll probably come up as we talk a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And now you guys will know what we're talking about. Okay. So let's go back and let's just start with, your early life, your teens or your 20s or wherever maybe your courtship and your marriage started. What was going on for you then? What led you to choose the person you chose? And tell us just all of those things about the beginnings.
Yeah. So like a lot of women probably have those childhood wounds that they develop coping mechanisms from, and kind of their perspective of the world that guides them. So I had abandonment wounds. My parents got divorced when I was 7. Having a single mom who worked all the time. I had that abandonment wound. So I really sought the attention, especially because I lived with my mom for the early years. And then later in my teen years, I lived with my dad. But just there's something about when you don't get your dad's affection as a child, just kind of leaves you seeking it from other male figures. And if you don't have a grandpa or an uncle or, a trusted family male figure in your life, you're going to look to men or boys that are your age. So that is definitely what I did through my teenage years, which really forced, I could not be myself. I had to be whatever it was that a man was looking for. And so I met my ex-husband when I was 16, and we started dating when I was 18. We got engaged 6 months later. So we had a really quick courtship, which sometimes people might call it love bombing. Mm-hmm. And so, but at the time that my ex-husband asked me to marry him, I had just turned 19 years old. His brother was getting a divorce. He was 21. And so it wasn't the great time to tell our parents that we had decided to get married. So we kind of waited a little while and just like, we're going to take this engagement out a little bit longer and wait to actually get married. But we, moved in together and, did all that. We were basically married. And then, things are different when you're, in those teenagers, butterflies and love, and you're both kind of all swept up into the, that side of the relationship that you don't really see those underlying things that might come up later in a relationship that could be triggers or conflicts. And of course, I was completely oblivious to that because I was just like, oh, I have this guy and he just treats me so wonderful. I'm the, light of his life. And I knew that he was going to he's very driven and motivated and wanted to be successful. And so I, was dreaming about, being this housewife that had got to be a stay-at-home mom and, be provided for, something that my mom, didn't have when she got divorced. And so yeah, I mean, like, it was just this perfect little world that I thought I was entering into.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we both got older, and I feel to some level, I kind of kept my spark, who I was, my authenticity a little bit. I was, kind of felt confident. I felt like I could be me. But then at some point I got this, and I don't know what it was, is that I needed to be, that perfect wife and fill that perfect little Stepford wife image in order to keep a husband.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is what I did. I did everything that I thought was right, and got married and tried to have kids. And it took us a while. Finally got pregnant, and I was so excited, and I thought he was going to be too. And he was not. And I was completely blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into?
How long were you married before the first pregnancy?
Let's see, we got married in 2000, and my son was born in January of 2003. So about two and a half years.
Okay.
He had started his business doing insurance, and he was busy all the time working, trying to build a business. And I just thought, that's just, this is what we have to do right now is, he has to be gone all the time in order to build his business. And I was going to finish school, and I was working part-time teaching computer classes to preschoolers. And, I was like, this is going to be fine. It's going to be fine. I've got family, it's just temporary. This is temporary. This, doing things alone was going to be temporary. And it turned out not to be.
Mm-hmm.
So then we got pregnant, 9 months later, again, after having my son. So my first two are 18 months apart. And that was a huge surprise. Still doing everything on my own. He was still working and golfing and doing his thing. And then got pregnant again. And I waited 4 months to tell him I was pregnant with our third child, because I thought, he is going to leave me.
Mm-hmm.
He is, because he just wasn't excited about the first two kids that we had. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is not good.
Yeah.
So I did tell him, and he was like, well, I guess we'll just figure it out. And, being a mom was not something I thought I ever wanted to do. But then when I got pregnant, and the idea of being a mom, it was just like, this is what I was made to do. I want to be a mom. I loved being a stay-at-home mom. I hadn't anticipated doing it all by myself. That was not part of my plan. But that was my life. And so I was like, well, this is the life I chose. This is, I guess, just what I have to do. And it did not go well. I didn't like doing it all on my own. And
so when you say you were a solo parent, you guys are living in the same house. He's obviously he's busy. He's gone a lot with work and such, but is he doing anything with the kids? Does he play with them? Does he interact with them? Do they have a good relationship when he is there? Having three children under the age of 3, it was kind of a blur. It felt like he was never there. Okay. And he was not the change the diapers, get up in the middle of the night, feed the kids ever. Like, yeah. I did all of that stuff. I did all the grocery shopping. I did all the cleaning, all the laundry. I did anything to do with the home and the kids. That was my responsibility. And he came home whenever he came home, and, the house needed to be picked up. The kids needed to be behaving. There had to be some sort of food. Did you guys have a good relationship at all?
I managed it. I did a lot. I was very codependent. And so everything that I did was to make sure that he did not leave me. Okay. So whatever I had to do to make sure that didn't happen is what I did.
Yeah,
and
just peacekeeping.
Yep. Yeah. So I don't know, like, obviously it was not a healthy relationship. And I totally own my part in that too. I let fear drive my decision-making in that, and had, who knows how it would have been had I not been that kind of wife, had I, made him come home and actually do things, with the kids and stuff. I took the kids on family vacations by myself. holidays, church, all of those things I did alone.
Okay.
So, I have an amazing family who helped me out so much. So it didn't feel I didn't feel as abandoned as subconsciously I probably felt. Just you don't have kids thinking you're going to do it by yourself when you're married.
No,
that's
nor
not
should you.
that's not the plan usually.
Yeah.
I am grateful because he and I are completely different people, and our ideas of parenting now I can see are completely different. So I am actually grateful that I had the opportunity to raise my kids the way that I wanted to, because I didn't have to fight with, the different parenting styles. I got to decide what that was going to look like. And so I am grateful for that. I can find the silver lining in it.
Yeah.
But then all of those things came out once, I was 50-50 parenting with him. So, that after maybe it was about 2009 and I was exhausted. I was trying to be everything to everybody. And I, like I said, I lost myself. I lost, what I really wanted, what I needed. Like none of those things were even options.
Yeah.
Those were put on the back burner. So,
and you'd been married how long at this point?
9 years, almost 9 years. So it was January of 2009. I went and stayed with a friend of mine down in Arizona for a month. And she had just moved down there and, I homeschooled kids. So, I just went down and she had 3 kids at the time and was pregnant with her 4th. And she was like my sister. Our kids grew up together. So it was like the most amazing month, when you're working with women and you just know what to do. You don't, like with a man, you have to tell them what to do.
Mm-hmm.
In a situation like that. With women, we know what to do. We know what needs to be clean, and we just do it. And so it was just like the easiest month ever. So when I came back, I was like, I am done doing this by myself. And I asked him to be more present. And he was basically like, I can't do that. So I was like, okay, well, how am I going to deal with this? And I did not deal with it well. I'll just say that. I did form a friendship with his best friend, and we became really close. He had just gone through a divorce. He was very vulnerable. I was very vulnerable. And my ex-husband left us together a lot. So from that, we developed an emotional affair. And that lasted about 2 months from the time that basically we were both like, okay, we both have feelings for each other that are outside of what they should be. It was about 2 months. And then my ex-husband had a clue what was happening and asked me about it. And I confessed everything. And we decided to go to counseling. He was devastated. And he was like, then he was ready to be present and to work on our marriage and to, try to be a partner. And of course, I ended up getting on antidepressants because I was so just disappointed and disgusted with myself that I would do that because that was just outside of my character. But I was empty. I had no self. And that just completely left me vulnerable to form a relationship like that. So, I was doing everything that I possibly could to make up for what I had done, because it was so awful in my mind. And so I did everything I could to build his trust back up. He was engaged. We were in counseling, and things were getting better, and we were healing. And then things went right back to the way they were before. And so I should have left the marriage in 2010. I should have left it before the affair. But after I realized nothing is ever going to change, I should have left him. But I was terrified. I had a 2-year and I had an associate's degree, but I didn't have a job. I didn't have any work experience. By this time, I'd been 10 years out of the workforce. And I had no idea how I was going to survive. And it was terrifying to think about leaving. It was less painful to stay and be alone and be lost than to be like legitimately out on out on my own, alone, and lost. So at least I had a illusion of a relationship, an illusion of safety in the marriage. And things just they didn't get better. And I ended up forming an emotional relationship with somebody who lived out of town. And I'm like, okay, I cannot go through this again. I need to leave this marriage. And I told him, I'm done trying to make a marriage work that you're not invested in. And I said, if you can't be the husband and father that we need you to be, then just let me go. I moved out of the bedroom. We were going to make things work. And then he called me into his office one day, and he looked at me and he said, when you told me that if I can't be the husband and father that you need, that I need to let you go. He's like, I'm going to need to let you go. So I basically felt like he fired me from our marriage.
I like how you said he called you into his office.
Literally, I have the visual in my mind of just being called into the office, okay, I'm going to need to let you go. And I was just like,
wow.
Okay, I guess this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And then he found out about the emotional affair that I was having with the man out of town, and he decided he wanted to try to make it work. And so we decided to separate with the intent to reconcile. So I moved out, and we were going to give it 6 months and see if we could go through counseling and do all that. When I moved out of that house and I left everything, he kept everything. When I moved out and got my own space, I mean, it was life-changing. I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I was missing out on. Not feeling like I had to walk on eggshells all the time, not have to manage somebody else's emotions and life and schedule. And, I was still doing everything on my own. So I was already used to that. And so I held the bar high. I was not going to compromise, while we were in the separation phase, and he was not going to change. We did a few times of counseling. One of his clients found out that I had moved out and that we were separated, and decided that my ex-husband was not trustworthy, and that he decided he didn't want to invest with him. So he showed up at counseling one day, mad at me for this. And our counselor looked at him and he said, "You're mad at her for losing a client because you were separated." And he was like, "Yeah." So basically blaming me. And our counselor was dumbfounded. He's like, I don't think I can help you. I don't think this is going to work. And I was like, wow, somebody else outside is seeing what's happening. And I just wrote him this long letter and just basically spilled my guts. And he took me to a restaurant. It was Yaya's, and he sat me down and he said, "I've been thinking, I love my life. I love who I am. I don't miss you, and I don't miss being married to you. I'm done. I want a divorce." And I was like, oh, it was just like this gut wrenching, because I thought for sure once we moved out, he would realize, oh my gosh, I miss my family. I miss, having life in my home. Because we had a big home, and he was just living in it all by himself, because I had the kids 80-20. And that was not the case. So,
where were you between the times when the counselor said, "I can't help you," and the time that he took you to dinner and said, "It's over"? Where were you in your mind with everything?
I mean, I was in survival mode. So a lot of it is a blur. It was a really short period of time. And I was just, trying to just still every day get up and take care of my kids and get them to school, and, take care of myself and figure out, I had enrolled in school. So I was in school. And so, I wasn't processing it at all. And so I think that's why it hit me so hard when he told me those things. And I just went out to the car and I was sobbing. I couldn't even breathe. And I called my friend. I will never forget this. I called her, and she thought somebody died because she could not understand what I was saying. And I finally calmed down enough and told her, and she was like, "Jennifer, I promise you, you are going to look back on this moment and you are going to be so grateful someday." And I was like, I mean, at the time you don't even imagine that, because you're so just heartbroken.
Yeah.
And, she was right. She was right. I should have done it earlier, but I didn't. I waited, and, timing is everything, and it needed to happen. And I think had I left him the first time, I probably would have doubted my decision. But, the after that second time and going through the separation and all of that, it was definitely we exhausted every option and it was done. So at the time, like, I had heard about narcissistic abuse when I went and visited my friend for a month, because her mother is a counselor, and she would hear me talk about these stories. She was like, "Do you know what narcissism is?" And I'm like, "No." And she was like, "You might want to look into it, because I think you might be in a situation." And I grew up with a narcissistic parent who, now looking back, like, okay, now I see the signs. But right after he said we were done, I was just a shell of a human. I felt like a complete worthless piece of, can I cuss? Shit? A worthless person. And I just thought, I am empty, completely empty. I didn't want to be alive anymore. Like, it was bad. And I was in a fog for a very long time, just survival mode, Then my ex-husband started dating a woman, who he then wanted to introduce to our children, like 6 months after he started dating her. And I was like, wait, what? Because at the time, he had told me he was only dating women under 30. And it was kind of this joke that he was never going to get married and he was going to be a forever bachelor. Even at the country club that he was at, like, that was his reputation. And so that it was like this huge shock of like, wait a second, he didn't want to be a partner with me, but he wants to be a partner with this person. It was a trip. It was a head trip for sure. And I was like, no, you're not introducing anybody to my kids. Because, at that point, I still saw them as my kids. Like, I raised them. They were with me 80% of the time. Well, after he started dating her, then he wanted more time with the kids. And of course, I had no place to say no. So then he got 50-50. And so 50% of the time I was like, I was a mom. The other 50% of the time I was like, what the hell do I do with myself? I had just graduated from school. I was dating somebody who I had no intention of introducing to my kids. And I definitely started to spiral at that point. And it took there was a lot of things that happened between that point in 2015 and in the fall of 2016, when I finally spiraled and had a depressive episode and was full on suicidal. And when I got out, I went to the hospital for 4 days, checked myself into a psychiatric hospital. And when I got out, first of all, when I was in there, I learned about what narcissistic abuse is, because every single woman that I was in that place with experienced the exact same trauma and abuse that I had: childhood, marriage, all of it. And some of them were it was really bad, like physically abusive. I was never, physically abused by my ex-husband, but the psychological and emotional abuse, I saw it in every single one of those women. And then I saw myself and I was like, holy crap, this is what happened. And when I got out, I was like, this is never going to happen to me again. I am going to change my life. I'm going to love myself. I enrolled in the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Program, completely changed my life. I started to learn tools that I wish I had had when I got divorced, because I made a lot of mistakes throughout that process before, just as far as playing into the game. I realized that in a codependent narcissistic abuse relationship, that there is a point where you then become what you hate. You start to behave in a way that you are the monster. You become that. You reflect that back. And there are so many times where I just cringe because of the way that I responded. But I know it was unconscious, and I've forgiven myself and all of that. But I developed some really great tools that helped me to heal, and that eventually I was able to teach my children as far as, having boundaries and being able to clearly communicate your needs, to love yourself, all these things that I didn't do that allowed me to completely lose myself in a relationship, and to devalue myself. And so when I look back on it, it was both the most traumatizing and powerful education I've ever experienced, because I developed a lot of tools that help me, especially with the current events that we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, right. Are you getting the support you need as you divorce or face the possibility of divorce? Did you know that for just $55 a month, you can be a part of a 1-hour weekly support group call of people just like you? Some haven't even filed yet, but they know the marriage is not sustainable or healthy. Some were served papers they didn't want. Others are feeling empowered that they finally took the reins of their life and hired an attorney and a divorce coach to help them navigate the uncertain waters of divorce. All of them are facing fear, grief, loss, confusion, and pain, and they're finding help and hope in a Starting Over Stronger support group. You can get registered today for a group at startingoverStronger.com/groups and start this week in getting the help you need to divorce well and then live well. Remember, divorce is hard. Life after doesn't have to be, but the support you get now is what makes the difference. Well, so did you have a difficult divorce, or was it over pretty quickly? Do you feel like things went the way you would have wanted them to, or the things you would do different in the actual process of the divorce?
Well, by the time that we separated, my ex-husband had built a very successful business, making quite a bit of money. And so when we separated, he had an actual document. We had an official document drawn up for the separation with the intent to reconcile. And so basically what happened is, once he decided that he was done, that separation there was an addendum to the separation. So we had already decided what he was going to be paying me every month. I got nothing from the house. I did get half of the 401k, which just ended up being a couple $1,000s. But I literally left everything. I didn't fight for anything. He had his golfing buddy, who was an attorney, draw up the paperwork, told me, this is what you get. I signed the paper. It was filed and done. So in that way, it was very simple. Had it to do over again, I would have gotten my own representation. I probably would have gotten more, but at the same time, when you're dealing with somebody like that who values money more than anything, they will fight tooth and nail to keep what they have. And at the time, I just thought, I cannot sustain through a fight like that. So I already felt like a piece of shit. So I was just like, whatever, I'll just sign it and be done and move on. So in that way, it was easy. It was I signed a piece of paper and it was done.
Okay. And if you had it to do over, you would get your own attorney and you would fight for a fair outcome?
Yes, I would.
Yeah.
I would. Yeah. My parents' divorce was really nasty. And then my dad's second marriage was pretty nasty divorce. And so my experience with divorce was very traumatizing already. And I was like, I cannot put my kids through this. I don't want to go through it. So there was that on my mind too, of just get it done with, just walk away, walk away.
Yeah. And honestly, that's the hardest part, because I think every woman feels that to some degree. If there's any assets at all that come into play during a divorce, there's that question is there. Is it worth the fight? Is it worth the fight? Yeah. And all I can say is that I believe it is, and that I know for a fact by statistics and research that I've done that the number one regret of women after divorce is not fighting for what they deserved. So that is, that's what I tell people all the time. Only you can decide if you want to fight for it. If a fight is going to be necessary. Yeah, I can't tell you that, but I can just tell you that a lot of people regret not doing that. So, and I think there's a lot more to it than money. And certainly there is, money is just security anyway. So it's not really about money and lifestyles and extravagant things for the vast majority of people. It's just needing to know that you're going to be okay. And you have a right to know that when you're coming out of a lifestyle that you've built with somebody, that certainly your lack of career, whether that's because you worked part-time or you made different decisions or whatever, is a part of a mutual decision that was made by the couple. And it's a mutual burden that needs to be bared during the divorce process. And so that's the way that I, share it with people. And so I think that it's important to hear from people who did or didn't do that, and what their thoughts are now, after the fact. So thank you for sharing that. And so when you look back over your marriage and your divorce, and you reflect on what you've learned, how you've grown, what came from that, what would you say is the most predominant lesson that all taught you?
I would say, do not lose yourself in a relationship. Do not try to become what you think the other person wants, because again, that's your perspective. Maybe that's not even what they want. It's just what you think they want. And if you're not clearly communicating your needs and they're not clearly communicating their needs, somebody is going to compromise, and zero-sum games don't work out. Somebody is going to lose out and it's going to go bad. So I would say, be authentic. My next relationship, they're getting me.
all the good and all the bad, right?
All the good and all the bad. I'm not hiding anything. Because it's not worth losing yourself for somebody else ever.
Absolutely. I love that. And it's so true, because I'm someone in a long-term relationship post-divorce, and I also lost myself. And I will tell you, that is like so ingrained in the fiber of your being that you don't even realize you're doing it. You get into a new relationship, even a healthy relationship, which mine is. I still catch myself years later keeping something inside that's bothering me because I don't want to cause problems. And then, when I catch myself, then I go, what am I doing? And he's not asking me to do that. Right. In fact, he's over here going, could you just talk to me? We're going to work this out, Right. So it's something that really takes time and effort to overcome. And so my question for you now is that how much time has it taken you to get to that place where you could identify that you'd lost yourself? And what things have you had to do? What efforts have you had to take to not only come to that realization, but to now have steps that you can take to not fall back into that?
Well, it took me, we got divorced in 2013, and that depressive episode was in 2016. So it took me a good 3 years to realize that I was trying to hold something together that needed to fall apart so that I could heal. So after that depressive episode, it took me probably a good 3 years to be able to stand on my own feet again and not feel like a broken, mess still trying to heal, and to get to that point where my goal was to learn to love myself, because that was the problem, is I didn't love myself. So I was willing to abandon myself in order to make somebody else happy in any relationship, really. And so I would say learning to love myself was the biggest, the greatest tool that I used. And through that process, I developed a process that I still use now today. Anytime I get, feeling low or upset or down or frustrated or lost or whatever, and I go back through these steps of, who am I? Where am I not loving myself? Where am I not owning my value and my worth? And when I find which one of those I'm not giving attention to and needs some attention, then I feel empowered again. So I'm constantly trying to learn more about myself through different ways, through the Enneagram and knowing my personality type, through human design and knowing my energy type. As I work with clients, I learn about myself, because usually what comes up in client sessions are things I need to hear too. So just really continually getting to know myself, knowing those shadow sides of me, learning to still love and accept myself, all of myself, so that when I am in a relationship, I can show up as a whole person and not as a shadow of somebody else or a reflection of somebody else. So really just learning to know myself, love myself, and owning my value.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you've just said kind of reminds me of something that I do talk about often with my clients, and that is that there are really two stages of healing after a divorce or significant relationship loss, and that is healing outside of the context of relationship, and then eventually healing inside the context of a relationship. Those are two very different things, and you can't do one with the other at the same time. You have to heal yourself first, and then you can start attracting the person that you want when you're really intentional about how you do that. And actually, I'm going to be working on developing a course for teaching that strategy that I used for manifesting and attracting a partner that aligns with your desires and your needs and your values, and the importance of the self-work that you have to do before that. And then what it looks like to heal inside of a relationship with somebody who's wanting to grow with you. There's a little saying that goes around by something to the effect of, everybody has baggage, just, be with somebody who's willing to help you unpack. And I think that sums it up as best as I could with any other words that I might say, because we do, especially if we're, in our 30s, 40s, 50s, and we're, coming out of damaged relationships, and we have childhoods, maybe that there was some of that as well. And whether you've been to therapy or you haven't, it really doesn't matter. You're struggling in some way or another through the traumas of life. And you've got to be in alignment with a person that you're going to commit your life to be willing to talk about those things, to unpack them, to not take things personal, to know that everything that comes against you as a couple is not you versus them. It's both of you versus the problem. And, that is a totally and completely different feeling in the context of a healthy relationship than every other problem you've ever faced in a toxic or difficult relationship. So I think it's awesome that you pointed that out. You're coming to that point where you feel like that healing outside the relationship is maybe coming to a close, and you're ready to move on to looking for how to attract that person that you can unpack the rest of it with.
Yes, that will be a very powerful and very much needed course for you to develop, because you're right. I'm in that. The thing is as I have healed myself, I've noticed that I have attracted men into my life who are good men, who see me and who allow me to be me. So I have a ton of guy friends who are awesome. The problem is the sexual attraction. I clearly have some healing to do around that. And I have a lot of sexual trauma in my past too. And then through my marriage. So that's kind of the next step. And you can't do that on your own. You can't do that type of relationship healing when you're on your own. So there is this, I am stepping into that. I'm opening myself up to the universe to bring in an actual romantic partner into my life, because I do feel like I am showing up to a relationship as a whole person. Yeah. So I'm definitely open to that next step of healing.
Very good. Well, so what have we not covered that you would like to share today about your divorce and recovery journey?
One of the things that I would say is a big part of my healing was because of the people I surrounded myself, the community that I have. I have the most incredible friends. I have no idea how I am so blessed I mean, like literally it's overwhelming to keep up with all of these amazing women in particular in my life, but also, men who have really come in and showed me what healthy masculine energy is, that there are good, safe men out there. So I would say community is so important when you are going through this healing process, to surround yourself with good friends and families and counselors and, people that are willing to hold space for you through your healing process. I honestly have no idea where I would be without my mother. She is a angel. She's a rock. She is the most amazing person I know. So
Very
she
cool.
has helped me out in so many ways, and like innumerable ways. I don't know where I'd be without her, which is interesting because, she experienced a lot of what I experienced. So it was like her watching me go through this whole process was like reliving her life again. And so for me to experience it as a child and then to experience it as a mother was a whole other dynamic that I had to heal, and I did discover, while I had a lot of daddy wounds, I did have some mommy wounds that, needed to be looked at. And while my mom is an amazing person, like it did allow me to have grace for myself, knowing that, like looking back and be like, my mom did the best that she could. And even though there were times where I felt abandoned by her too, I can have grace for myself that all the times that I acted unconsciously as a mom. When you're in survival mode, your kids feel it and they might not consciously be aware of it, and you're not consciously aware of it. So now I'm getting to go back and help my kids heal from the things that I did, unconsciously to them. And it is, I think it's generationally, it's very healing for me to do that. I'm healing that, mother wound and on both ends.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I didn't have the community of people that I have around me, I would not even be able to do that, because so much of my identity was being a mom and thinking my whole life was just, I was going to be the best mom that I could be. And then recognizing there were some times I was a really shitty mom, but not because I was just, a shitty mom, but just because unconsciously I was allowing these wounds to come up and take over my actions. And so to be able to identify those wounds, you heal those things and it heals generationally.
Yeah.
So very grateful for my community. They are lifesavers.
Very good. Well, that's a great point to end on, because I talk on here all the time about the importance of community. And that's not just during the divorce process, having a team of professionals to support you, like not only just your attorney, but a coach and a financial advisor and a therapist and anything else that you might need in your unique situation, but also that tribe of sisters and brothers and friends that are good for you and don't judge you and don't put you back in that place of shame about the fact that you're going through divorce. And oftentimes that tribe starts very small and sometimes stays very small. And that's okay, because, it's still a strong community of support. And that's what's important as you're going through the divorce process and healing from it. So thank you for everything that you've shared today, for opening up your heart and sharing your story with me and the listeners. And listeners, I hope today that you have heard something that has given you hope as you go through this process, and you have latched on to something that you can do differently as you leave here today, that will make a difference in the process of growing through your divorce, not just going through it. So we're here every Wednesday for more help as you divorce and hope as you are starting over stronger. Wow, what a powerful story. I hope you enjoyed everything Jennifer had to share and gained great encouragement from it. And you're going to have a next step to take somewhere in your divorce process or in your healing process that is going to make things better for you as you go. I know there's just a lot to unpack in what she shared here today. And so maybe even listen to it again and see what rises to the surface for you, or spend some time journaling to reflect on it. I know there's just a ton there, so I am grateful to her for sharing. And I want to say also that if you have not yet joined us on the Facebook group, it is Starting Over Stronger After Divorce on Facebook. There's a few membership questions, which include the opportunity to put in your email address so that you can get a copy of the Starting Over Stronger Divorce Prep Guide. And from there, I would also invite you to keep an eye on the website, which is just startingoverstronger.com, where we're looking to add many and not so many e-courses in 2022, along with healing retreats. And there'll be more information coming about both in this new year. So thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you again next week for more help as you divorce and hope as you are starting over stronger.